At this time, I would like to turn it over to our presenter for today, Ms. Amy Bennett, who's the Circuit IT Security Director from the Office of the Circuit Executive for the Ninth Circuit. And Amy, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Welcome to Identity Theft 101. I am going to change my background to something more appropriate because we are going to talk about identity theft. Let me share my screen. This is the most technical thing I have to do today, is share the screen and not get myself thrown out of this meeting. It's not working. Share screen, PowerPoint, share. Can you see PowerPoint? Identity Theft 101.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Identity Theft 101. Most of us have heard about it from the perspective of what do you do as a law-abiding citizen? And we've heard it over and over and over again to the point where you kind of tune it out because you know you should do it, but I mean, you got other things to do, you get busy, life happens. So I have a guest speaker who is Jane Doe, professional criminal, and welcome to her seminar on how to make this a profession, how to make some money stealing people's identity. I originally was gonna go with rock my Mardi Gras mask, but I forgot about the reading glasses, so go with it. Welcome to Identity Theft 101, my fellow criminals. Why identity theft? You can stay home, saves on gas, better for the environment, reduces your carbon footprint. You can steal from anywhere in the world and you don't have to spend a dime to get there. It's good for the family. It's good for social cohesion, and it's socially responsible. You don't put people at risk because you're staying safe and you're keeping them safe too. It's cost effective, it's efficient, it's effective, and you don't pay taxes. There is no downside to this. I get some frequently asked questions in my seminars. Well, I mean, how much does it cost? It doesn't cost anything. In fact, it's negative costs if you are good at it, because you're going to be making money, lots and lots and lots of money. The only thing you really need is access to the internet, and you can go to your library. Another frequently asked question, do I have to be technical? Because I hear about these elite hackers. Well, there's an awful lot that you can steal that doesn't take that much effort. People really aren't very good at protecting their identities, and there's a lot of people. So the opportunities here, there's enough for all of us to do extremely, extremely well. If you get caught, the odds are infinitesimal. People really don't care. It happens so often. It's so frequent. Law enforcement really doesn't have time for us, the little guys. And they don't want to, I mean, they don't want to hound us small business people. How do you get started? Well, thank you for asking. That's why we're here. I'm just kidding. That was some identity theft humor. This is our agenda for today. We're going to go over some of the main concepts. It's a high-level overview. If you're looking for scripting and hacking and super technical jargon, that's my next class. This is just concepts. The best identity theft resources are from the government. The FBI is telling you that credit card and bank statements, you can steal an identity with that. If you can get somebody to give them their credit card number over the phone, you don't even have to talk. You can be anybody you want to be on that phone. And you can change the caller ID so you can look like you're their bank. You just need one, and you can have thousands of dollars. People are going to be aware of suspicious transactions. So you want to do suspicious transactions maybe at night when people are asleep, to figure out what time zone your target audience is in. If you can get a copy of somebody's credit report, you have so much information about them. And the great news is the major credit bureaus have been hacked repeatedly. People don't shred their documents. They think I'm going to put them in the trash and, well, get to know people. Walk around your neighborhood. Go to a recycling center. If you can find personal or financial information, you can get into somebody's life and you can take it over. And honestly, you're doing them a favor because you're making them more aware of how vulnerable they are. It's a public service. It's the right thing to do. FBI, again, these are some of the identity theft scams. These people got caught. So, be careful what you're doing, but they were successful until they got caught. They were successful enough to get noticed by the FBI. You can scam unemployment benefits with identity theft. You can open a bank account. You can open credit cards. You can get a small loan and maybe not go buy a Lamborghini. Older people, great victims, because a lot of times they don't want to ask. They're afraid to ask, or, kids are too busy to check in with mom and make sure that, she's okay, and find out about that wonderful man that fixed her computer and put all the malware on it. A true story happened to me. You can steal from your company. You can keep your day job. You can steal from your company, and you can steal from your employees as well. And the last one, we always wondered what happens after after somebody's in the Olympics. What do they go on to do? Well, let's hear it for a life of crime. I think that's groundbreaking. It's revolutionary. You can impersonate other people's family members. And some of these people that had day jobs, please note my middle bullet. This guy was a special agent with the IRS in the Criminal Investigation Division. He had access to lots of stuff. And even if he goes to jail, he's got enough information that he could live comfortably for the rest of his life in some country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. People give their information to doctors because we trust them. There's a lot of people around that doctor's office that have information. So you could just get a temporary job in a doctor's office, someplace where people are giving their sensitive information, and you can steal their identities, or you can pass it off to somebody else who's going to steal their identity. It's all extremely, extremely low risk. The Federal Trade Commission also has some great resources for identity theft. They define it basically, somebody uses personal or financial information without permission. It's that easy. That's all you have to do. And here's what you can do. You can get the address, the name, not hard. Credit card, maybe a little harder, but get a job as a waitress. You can get bank account numbers, and the big one is the Social Security number. I'll show you that. Medical insurance account numbers, do we really think about how sensitive those are? Because the medical people always ask about birthdays. Birthdays are not hard to find. And you can buy things with their credit cards. You can get new credit cards. You can open accounts. You can get their tax refund. You can get medical care. And if you get arrested, just pretend you're them. It's their problem. When the bench warrant comes out, won't they be surprised when people show up at their door? These are some of the common scams also on the FTC. So if you're looking for an angle, if you're looking for what do I do, take a look at these. These are kind of a how-to. There's different, like any business, criminal or otherwise, there's different niches. And their Social Security is probably the biggest one. That is the gateway to identity. Phone, all you need is a phone. Please do not use your phone. You want to stay safe out there. Phishing, super easy. Takes maybe a little more technical ability, but honestly, once you get a computer and you get some of the software loaded, you can send millions of emails in a minute, and it just takes one. And there's always going to be one. And if you can get into the unemployment benefit scams, you can do multiple unemployment benefits coming to you, and it will support your unemployment. Social Security. You can get a Social Security number through research companies. And they tell you, what do you need? You need the full name. Okay, I can get that. I need a current or a recent address. Got it. Age of my subject, I can get that. Date of birth, not that hard. So all I need to do is convince a legitimate or semi-legitimate organization that I am who I say I am. And there's all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to find this person because child support, alimony, something, connect with them, but see if you can get them to give you social security numbers. And how do they find it? They get the major credit bureaus. Again, the major credit bureaus have been breached repeatedly. All of the information that is in the major credit bureaus is available on the dark web. It's all there for the taking. Again, the FTC, they're talking about some of their resources. You can browse scams by topic. So depending on what interests you, what your skill set is, what your background is, you can choose from a wide variety of interesting scams. This is a career that really doesn't have any limits. It's interesting. It's engaging. And what do you do when something is stolen? The FTC has a link called identitytheft.gov. And if your information is exposed in a data breach, we can go to data breaches. We can get that information. Did somebody lose their wallet? You can steal wallets, and you can hire people to steal wallets. Not that hard. If an online account was hacked, we can do that. It's not that hard. People tend to use the same password or types of passwords over and over and over. You just need one. And you can get it from a breach. So you go to identitytheft.gov, the number one piece of information, the social security number. If you have that, you can take over somebody's life. And they list the other things. These are the top pieces of information that can cause you to steal somebody's identity. It's awesome. The government is just so helpful. You can also download it in a handy PDF because you don't want to hang out on their site, especially using your own name. We'll talk about that. Social Security, the Social Security Administration, the Social Security numbers used to be sequential, which means if I know somebody's date of birth and I know where they got their Social Security number, I have the first 3 to 5 numbers of their Social Security number because it was sequential. Birth dates are sequential, Social Security numbers were sequential, and they were also identified by area, by region. So if you know where somebody was and basically when they were born, you can get probably definitely the first 3, no question. You can probably get the first 5. And what happens is everybody wants the last 4 of your social. Why? Because that's the one that's random. Those last 4 digits are what you need to get the rest of the Social Security number if somebody got a Social Security number before June 25th, 2011. So anybody who's more than 10 is an awesome victim. Perfect. It's perfect. There are also applications on the website where you can go and you can put in the dates and the locations, and it will pretty much come down to maybe the top 5 possible Social Security numbers, which is an awful lot easier than trying to guess nine random numbers. It's getting harder, but there's still a huge population of victims out there. It's awesome. So a lot of help from the Social Security Administration, and they randomize them to try to protect people from us. The first 3 digits of the geographical reference. Banks tell customers. Banks are great. You look at their websites, you see what they tell people about fraud, and then you work around it. Suspicious or unauthorized activity, lost or stolen. If you're going to use somebody's debit, credit, access their checking account, do it at about 11 o'clock p.m. their time, because they're not going to be aware of it for the next 6 hours. Timing is everything. Timing is important. Key concepts: anything connected to the internet is potentially connected to everything else. It's a global network. You can get to anybody if you are connected to the internet. The corollary to that is they can also get to you. And remember, there is no honor among thieves. So be careful who you're playing with out there on the dark web or even on the surface web, because, and if you get a good shape, and if you can take some other criminal stuff, do it. Just don't get caught and don't let them know who you are. Well, that's another class. This is the internet. These bubbles are based on activity. Google and Facebook are pretty much the top sites that have people on them. You can use Google and Facebook. They collect information themselves. You can collect information using Google and Facebook, not that hard. People use YouTube as well. We'll talk about YouTube in a minute. Staying safely out of jail. Really important, don't use your own computer registered with your name that you did the license with Microsoft, and you're using your home internet service provider who knows what the address of that computer is. Don't do that. It's really important that your computer not be traceable. You can use public devices. You can use a library computer, but don't use the same library computer. Don't set up a pattern. Pick a library, maybe not in your hometown. This is the Library of Congress. I threw it in just because it's a cool picture, but don't use the Library of Congress public computers because that's a little obvious. And you want to use some device that has none of your personal information on it, none of it. One of the ways you do that, buy it for cash or gold, depends on where you are in the world. You want an anonymous connection. You want to make sure that if they're trying to track you, they can't find you. The way you do that, your anonymous computer on a public Wi-Fi, you can go use other people's Wi-Fi. It's not that hard to get in. You can buy a personal MiFi device and have your own little hotspot. Just make sure that thing, don't buy it on Amazon with your actual credit card. There's a trail. And if you can borrow somebody else's MiFi and hack some people, do it. It's awesome. You can use virtual machines. These are basically disposable computers. Not that hard to set up, not that hard to use. The same way that solitaire game on your computer is a virtual solitaire game, you interact with it like a real solitaire game, like it's physical. I mean, it is a real solitaire game, but it's not physical. You can do the same thing with a virtual machine. You can have multiple virtual machines, just like that solitaire game, in different windows on your actual machine. You can also run it on the cloud. They're real computers running real software. They just don't have any hardware, and they're separate from your machine. You use a virtual machine, it's a proxy. The virtual machine can get slimed with ransomware or malware or tracked, but there's no association to you. Virtual machines, disposable computers. When you register your accounts, don't use your iPhone that you have an Apple account with. Leave no trace. Get a temporary phone. Again, don't buy it with your credit card. Don't buy it through some account that identifies you. The best way to do it, just go to Best Buy. You can get a burner phone. Don't use your customer. Don't use your customer card. Be careful of cameras. You can wear a hat, or you could. I guess my mask would be a little bit obvious in a Best Buy. Although maybe not, because there's a lot of criminals in Best Buy these days because there's no trail. Just pay cash. You can get free email accounts. Again, important when you want to use your burner phone to register your untraceable email account. And you want to do this on your anonymous computer so they can't find you. Not that hard to do. It's important when you're setting up that account and they're asking for your date of birth, they're asking for your email address, they're asking for your phone number. Don't use your real stuff. Don't use even one piece of information that could relate to you. You want it to be something completely different, anonymous. Anonymous means there is no track back to you. Not that hard to do. None of this is technical. Important, leave no trace. Make sure that they can find you. You want to stay safe out there. How do you find other people's information? There is a site called OSINT.com. It is a safe site. It is a security researcher site. And by the way, for those of you who are looking to have a legitimate job at the same time you're running your criminal enterprise, IT security is an awesome gateway job. And you can keep your job and then steal people's identities, under cover of darkness. It's really convenient. OSINT.com. OSINT is a term for open source intelligence. It's basically publicly available information. If you go to OSINT.com, there's a framework where if you get a piece of information, whatever it is, you can click on this dot and it'll expand out into sites that will give you more information. These are sites. So you can, if you have somebody's email address, and most people don't think to protect their email addresses, they don't think to have more than one, like maybe one you're giving to businesses that you may or may not trust, maybe one for people you do trust, like your bank. People don't realize that encrypted email addresses, you can get an encrypted email address for free. And you can pay and get 5 email addresses that go to the same account. So you never have to give your most sensitive email address to everybody. You can give it to your bank, you can give it to your friends. That's the one that you're using to get into your accounts. That's what we should be doing, because criminals, especially criminals that are using computers, we've got to be really, really good with our security. It's important. So you get somebody's email address, which, who cares about an email address? What can somebody do with an email address? Well, email addresses are often used with passwords to get into accounts. We used to have user identifications, user IDs, and everybody forgot them. I couldn't remember if I was Jane Doe, if I was JD, if I was JDOE, couldn't remember. So I just used my fake email address. But if you can get somebody's email address, you can get their password. If there's a password associated with that email address, you can find it. And this is how you do it. These are the different sites that have email addresses associated with passwords. These are breach sites. The thing about a breach site is you may not know that you've been breached. People don't realize that by the time breach information is published, the hackers have had it for months, sometimes years, and then people don't realize that their information is in the breach data. So security researchers publish it as a public service, which is awesome for us, because there's always going to be somebody out there that doesn't know, didn't make it a priority, and then you can get into their stuff and you can steal it. It's awesome. How do you get data? Publicly available data. States are being super transparent these days, which is fabulous for us criminals. You can get into voting records. You can get into a DMV record, social media. If you own a small business, all your information is in that, registered with the state. Property records, not hard to find, really, really helpful. And on some of the older property records, some of those older titles are posted online. A lot of those have social security numbers in them. Really important. If you can get into property records and look through them, see, because you're going to have the name. You've obviously got the address because that's the title to wherever they're hopefully living. But a lot of times there's a social security number on those. There's leaked data. Maybe somebody inadvertently posted something or dropped something or told somebody something. That's great. Sometimes it's deliberately posted out there or hacked. It can be by somebody inside who's disgruntled. Super, super easy. Go to LinkedIn. Don't use your real name or your real computer. Get an account on LinkedIn and go look at what people are saying. People bleed information on LinkedIn. It's fabulous. They share all kinds of stuff about themselves and their companies. And all you have to do is express an interest and they will spill their guts. It's fabulous. Breach data is stolen information. We're going to talk about that. So for a practical exercise, either now or come back to it, if you have a machine, if you have a computer, maybe not this one, but if you go to DuckDuckGo.com, that is a search engine that doesn't track you. It's a safe set. It's just a browser. If you go to DuckDuckGo.com and you put in TruePeopleSearch.com, this is known as a data broker, a data aggregator. True People Search, which I misspelled. I'm just going to go with I encrypted it. I didn't misspell it. TruePeopleSearch.com collects information from all those sources that I just showed you, and they sell it and they share it. They are a data aggregator because they're pulling all the information together. They're also a data broker. because they're selling it. They offer the most free information of any site I've found. It is, if somebody has not taken any steps to protect themselves, they're wide open on truepeoplesearch.com. So it's okay to go to truepeoplesearch.com. It's a legitimate site. This is what you're going to see. You can put in the person's name, you can put in their city and their state and search for them. And then from that list of results, you're probably going to see the person you're looking for. You may have to go back and put in a middle initial. You may have to put in a more precise city. But you're pretty much going to find, if the person has not done anything to protect themselves, you're probably going to find them. And it's okay to click on the more information. Again, it's a legitimate website. That should give you name, relatives, associates, should give you their current address and their past couple of addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. You are well on your way to stealing somebody's identity. And all you need is their name and the town they live, sometimes even just the state they live in. And you can start pulling information together so that you can steal their identity. It's an incredible public service that the data aggregators and data brokers provide. I tear up thinking about it. One thing though, they will try to get you to sign up for the free report. Don't do that, because the free report will just gather more information from you. And if you click on, yes, I agree to the terms and conditions, you just signed yourself up to be spammed by everybody, which is why you want to do this on a machine that isn't, if you're actually stealing people's identity, don't do it on a machine or with an email account that you care about getting spam. Passwords. Passwords are awesome. The point of a password is to get into something. So why would we not be interested in passwords? Yet people think passwords are such a hassle. I mean, why do I have to have 8 characters? It's awesome. Why should it be different? My cat is joining us, which is why I have compressed air. That will buy us 20 minutes of silence. There is a site called Have I Been Pawned? This is a security researcher site, and it's fabulous. You can go to, it's just Have I Been Pawned? It's a safe website. It is a security researcher website, and they have recently reached an agreement with the FBI, where the FBI will share breach information on Have I Been Pawned? Pawned is cyber slang for pawned, publicly owned. In other words, they got your stuff. You can put in somebody's email, and if it's been in a breach, it will come back and tell you it's been breached, it's been pawned, which is fabulous because sometimes it'll tell you which breach it's in. So you want to go to that breach and get that password. People don't always realize if they've been in a breach. So when the security researchers publish the information, they're publishing passwords. So if people are using the same password for, 10, 15, 5 years, pretty much it's probably going to be in a breach. And it may not be reported yet. It may be on the dark web. I'll show you how to get to the dark web so that you can get on the cutting edge of some of these breaches. Breaches are fabulous. Breach data is anything provided or collected by a third party. You can use it to hack. You can sell it and trade it. And sooner or later, it's probably going to be freely available because people have used it. Some companies will tell you that, well, your passwords are safe because we hashed them, which means we not really encrypted, but we obscured them, we obfuscated them using some mathematical algorithm. It's a hash, totally secure. Well, yeah, you can't break a hash, but what you can do is search for a hash. If you have hashed passwords, you can't use those, but you can search on this site, which I do not recommend you go to unless you're on a computer that you can destroy. You can take a hash and you can put it in and you can search for the original password. And the same way that email address, which nobody's worried about, is associated with a password someplace on the internet, if there's been a breach, and there's a lot of breaches, or on the dark web, if you get a hash, okay, yeah, they secured the password, but someplace that password and that hash are going to be together. And this site will go out across the entire internet and look for the hash passwords, which people don't worry about because they're hashed, and they'll associate it with the real password. So you just blew one of the major lines of defense of companies that protect passwords out of the water just by comparing the secured version of the password someplace it's going to be with the real password, the unencrypted password. What do you do when you get somebody's email and password or user identification and password? What do? You got a breach, you bought breach data, you found breach data, you got a bunch of, what do? Well, it's called credential stuffing. This is the most effective way to steal identities. Somebody has a breach. They usually do not report it. The first thing businesses do, I love this. The first thing they do is they don't let people know that they're vulnerable. That is not their first instinct. I find generally the first thing they do is they contact their legal department. And that can take a while. I have found that legal issues are not always timely. So that's awesome for us. So they have a security breach. Then customer information is leaked or sold or stolen, which is also good for us. Somehow we hacked it ourselves, we hired somebody to hack it, we bought it, or we found it online, because there's a lot of posted breaches online. Sometimes people post them as a public service just to let everybody know that, hey, these passwords and these credentials have been compromised. But the people whose passwords and credentials got compromised don't always get the memo, which is, it's awesome. It's fabulous. What you do is you take that list of user identifications, which is often just email addresses and passwords, and you try to access different accounts. You can do this automatically. I've got another class I can show you on how to do this. We'll really steal some people's stuff. It's awesome. But basically, you go out and you hit the first 1,000, 10,000 websites. Computer program. It's an app. Criminals have apps too. And all you have to do is have the list and have a computer and have an app. And if you get in, then you just start draining it. Start sending yourself stuff, not to your home address, of course. The corollary to credential stuffing with known passwords is credential spraying. You take a known user identification, or you can just use an email these days because pretty much everything is email and password. If you don't know the password, you can try variations. If you have a pretty good idea what somebody's birthday is, or their anniversary, or if there was a data breach where there was a password in it, you can try different variations of that password. You can also, there's always these wonderful lists of just what the horrible passwords are. I think the most common password is 12345. It's fabulous. So you can take that whole list and throw that in, and you can just throw that in with their email address. If you have somebody's email address, take a shot at getting into Amazon with it, or getting into Wells Fargo. There's enough people that don't care about securing their passwords. It's worth your time, especially if you're automating it. That's credential spraying. A mangler it's an app. You can buy one. You can take a known password, you can put it in a mangler, which is an application. It's a computer program. It's an app, and it will spit out however many different permutations and versions of that password. Then you run it through and try it against the top 1,000, 10,000 websites and see if any one of those gets you in. So for those people that are just kind of changing a cap once in a while, or changing a number, or they're coming back and they're reusing the same password, or they just move the number up one, you're going to get them with the mangler. The mangler is going to come up with that password somewhere in that list of possible passwords. And somebody's going to put them into an app, and they're going to go out and hit all those websites automatically. It takes seconds. So you can automate for efficiency. There is no reason to be slaving at your job. Your time is worth more than that. I mean, go get a massage. It's fabulous. You can automate for efficiency. I do not, even though my Norton is telling me this is not a bad website, I don't recommend it. But yeah, you can get their application. You can use CrackMapExec to do a credential spraying attack. And again, security researchers, cybersecurity, IT, gateway professions to being hackers. You can also moonlight as a hacker. The mask, where's my mask? I mean, I think my mask, it was only $15, and you can wear this super cool mask and you can hack all night. It's great. Supplement your income, de-stress, listen to some music. It's great. Another thing that is really helpful for stealing somebody's identity is taking over their mobile phone. The subscriber information module on a mobile phone is how the phone gets access to a network. It's how Verizon or T-Mobile, whoever knows that that phone is allowed to connect to my network. Some of them, your own personal iPhone has a bunch of account information on it, so please do not use your own phone to hack anything. But you can, number one, for your own purposes, you can use different burner SIM cards in the same phone, so you're not buying phones all the time. Again, Best Buy, cash, wear a disguise. But if you want to take over somebody else's phone, you simply call the service provider, convince them that you're whoever it is and that you're buying a new phone. You often can convince them to shift the service to the new phone. Then you get their texts. So if you were trying their user ID and password, it was the right one for the bank, but then it challenged you with, we're going to text you a code, go steal their phone. You don't stop there. Do not get discouraged. Go steal their phone. And you don't need it for very long. You just need it long enough to get that text from Wells Fargo or whoever with the passcode on it. Then you get in. And again, do this at night when you got 5-6 hours of uninterrupted time. You can also outsource it. This is low tech. Just go to a mobile phone store. $100. I want to see this person's texts for a minute, long enough to change passwords. I want 10 minutes of this person's phone. Super easy. People don't realize that if they always assume it's the network, or they get intimidated by technology. They don't realize that the activity on the accounts could be related to their phone being hijacked. If phone doesn't work, the first thing is it's got to be the service. The odds of being out of service in America in 2021, I mean, unless you're in the middle of the desert or you're in a lead box, there's going to be something somewhere unless you know you're out of service. But if you're in the middle of San Francisco or Detroit, you're going to have service. So if your phone is not working, it's quite possible it is working. It's just working for somebody else. People don't realize that if they can't get to their accounts, that's when you clear your calendar. They don't think about it because they got their calendar, they got things to do. I'll get to it later. That's all you need. It doesn't take long to drain people's accounts. It's super easy. Experian. You can put a credit freeze on your accounts. It is a best practice and it's free. So people are rushing out to put credit freezes on their accounts. That's awesome. You have security researchers telling people don't waste your time on identity theft protection services. Because if your accounts are frozen, if your credit is frozen, they're not going to be able to pick up anything anyway. Nobody can take out credit. You're perfectly safe. There is no reason to have identity theft protection if you have a credit freeze. They would be right, except it's not that hard to lift somebody else's credit freeze. You just go to the website and you try to get their PIN, which they created, which everybody forgets. You got their first name, probably got their middle, but it's not required. Got their last name, address, go to truepeoplesearch.com. You know what city, again, state, zip code, you got all this. Date of birth you're going to get. If you can get, again, the most important piece of information to steal somebody's identity, get into their accounts, is a social security number. If you can get their social security number, they don't care what email address you put in. And please do not put your personal email address in if you are stealing somebody. It has to be somebody else. I mean, it's got to be this person. It cannot be you. They are going to send you a reset. You're going to reset their PIN. You're going to go in, you're going to lift the credit freeze, and then you're going to steal their identity. Credit freeze is a great idea, not hard to get around. All you need is a social security number, not hard. Phishing. love to fish, both, out on the lake, but also on my computer. Fishing, you can send millions of emails out, and all it takes is one, and that's your rent. There's always somebody who is going to believe it. You can buy information. You don't have to go out and steal it yourself. There's criminal forums. Criminals work together. I mean, we're business people too. Be careful working with fellow criminals, because the whole ethics thing doesn't really apply. And if you get an opportunity to steal stuff from other people, definitely do it. Definitely. Because they would steal it from you. So you're even. If you buy it, it's less effort than hacking. But again, if you're buying the information, it may or may not be valid. If you hire somebody, maybe a help desk tech or somebody, especially somebody who's disgruntled, you want to hang out in bars near places, you really want to hack, just strike up a conversation about how crappy the boss is. You're going to hear all kinds of stuff that you can use to get into their accounts or get into their networks. And if they get caught, they don't know who you are. You were sitting in a bar wearing this. It's on them. Criminal forums. They are not always on the deep web. The deep web isn't necessarily criminal. It's just not public. It's what businesses use to do, banks use it to use transactions that aren't public. The dark web is a little more criminal. It's unlisted sites, and you need a special browser to get there. Everything isn't on the deep web and the dark web. There's a lot that is on Google, and there's a lot that's certainly on YouTube, because the criminal forums keep getting shut down. They keep attacking each other, and law enforcement finds them periodically and shuts them down. There's a lot that's on the surface web. There's a definite connection between a lot of people are on Twitter, a lot of criminals on Twitter. I mean, you got to network, you got to stay up with technology. There's a lot of overlap. And there are sites on the surface web, you can search for this, that, hey, these are some deep websites. I love this ad because they're pointing out that just don't click on these links. You want to make sure that your webcam is off. You want a second identity. And you definitely want, they're talking about setting up a whole separate network, but basically a virtual machine, a computer that can't track back to you. Just don't go click on something that says deep web links. And, shifting back into being an IT security officer for a minute, please don't do it from a federal computer. I'm begging you. Carding, you're going to get two things if you search for carding. One, you're going to get a bunch of historical references to sheep, because carding is how they apparently got the burrs and stuff out of the wool. That's not what we're talking about. Carding is credit card fraud. There's lots and lots of carding forums. Credit cards are big, big business. There's carderebay.com, and they provide Visa and MasterCard for hacking. So if you're stealing information, if you want to go in bulk, if you want to specialize, you want to get on the dark web and take a look at what's out there. carderbay.com. How to card? This is just YouTube. This is just a YouTube search for carding. Be careful of YouTube, even though YouTube itself is a legitimate platform. It's owned by Google. These are videos, executable code, uploaded by criminals like ourselves. So I do not recommend going to these and clicking on these. Certainly not with a government computer on a government network, because there is no anonymity on either. But you can learn everything you want to know on YouTube. Just use a virtual machine that you can dispose of once you've gone to these sites. Lots of information out there. This is the dark web. It's a little hard to see because I was on a virtual machine, because I didn't want to get slimed. But basically there's forums. Demon Forum is one. These are criminals. And there's different levels of access. So if you have stolen something, they know you're a criminal. Prove you stole something, they know you're a criminal. You're not law enforcement. You can get different layers of access. You can also pay money You can give them money to give you access to some of these different chat groups. So you can join a forum. Don't use your real name. Don't use your real phone. Don't use your real email or your real computer. But you can absolutely go into some of these forums and meet up with, I mean, it's a bubble. It's social support in the era of COVID. It's just another support bubble. Cracking King, if you're trying to get credentials, you have credentials, you're trying to get in, you want credentials, go to Cracking King. They will help you, like the hashes, they will help you use those passwords, use those email, try to get into stuff. I mean, it's fabulous. It's very, very socially responsible having this interaction, especially in a pandemic. The Deep.web went out of business. The FBI put them out of business. Deep.web used to be a site that listed the different criminal websites, which is why the FBI put them out of business. But I pointed out, because if you look on Deep.web, you got RSS, you got Twitter, and you got Facebook. Criminals are social people. They're going to use technology. If you do this, if you are working across different forums, make sure you do not have anything that is your own, not personal. It's your alias. It's the person in the mask. It can never, ever, ever be your personal phone, your personal email, your personal computer, because there's a link between them. If you give up one piece of personal information, the FBI can roll it all together and they can find you and they can connect everything that you did in your anonymous persona. So be careful. But one of the cool things about Deep.web is they talked about dead markets. So they either got shut down or they turned out to be scams. Shocker that a criminal marketplace would be a scam. Criminals scam each other. Criminals. One of the cool things out here is, I mean, they can tell you how to buy drugs online, but I love that the security guide for beginners on the dark web criminal forums. You've got, and down here, you've got security tutorials where also how you can hack other things. But you, as a professional identity thief, you need to be really good at cybersecurity. You need to be very, very careful protecting your own information, because not only do you not want your victims to figure out who you are, you want to make sure that other criminals can't steal your stuff. You got to, I mean, this is the challenge level, but it's so much fun. This is more of the dark web. These are carding. Lots, CC is credit carding. They got Visa, they got MasterCard, and millions. You get any state, any country, and they update it daily. And Carter Bay, right there, that's their #1 promoted site, followed by Crimes. So there's a lot of people out there. You can network with them. You've got the Hackademics over here in France. So just, I mean, it's awesome. It's a whole economy going on here, and you can be part of it. There's Hell Forum, which this is Twitter. They're on the dark web and they're on Twitter. There's a crossover. Be careful what you click on. You may be on Twitter, but if there's a link on Twitter to a criminal forum, there's a pretty good chance that there's another hacker out there, another criminal who's hoping that somebody will click on that and then they can infect your computer. Doesn't matter if it's a disposable machine. It matters a lot if it's your personal or your work computer. Matters a lot. Don't do that. So this concludes my Identity Theft 101 presentation. I do have a follow-on presentation, which is Identity Theft 102. So the first 10,000 people that want to sign up for Identity Theft 102, I'm going to provide them a complimentary vintage lockpick set. So if you want to go back to the good old days, which, you know, our kids don't understand, when you had to, you know, go out in the snow uphill both ways to rob somebody's house, just let me know. Again, it's Jane Doe. And why identity theft? So much you can do. And you're spending more time with the family. You don't want somebody else raising your kids. You want them to have your lack of values. All these reasons you can stay home in a pandemic, comfortable, happy, safe, and you can still travel the world virtually. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to take questions, and I believe you can see me right now. And what I'm hoping is that I wasn't just talking to myself for the last hour. Did you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Yes, we
did.
did.
Okay.
There's one question in the chat.
All right. Awesome.
Or
Awesome.
two, couple.
Okay. I'm starting to see the chat now. I'm a little bit concerned that maybe you guys have been calling me. All right. Yes, the best way to, where do you start, and the best way to protect your information? The number one thing to protect your information, your social security number, absolutely critical. If that is on anything, I was an Army officer, and when I shipped to Korea the first time, it's stenciled on my footlockers. That was our identification in the military, our social security number. So take a look at where that thing is. And like, I need to go out and stencil over it. It's in my garage, but fascinating and terrifying. Awesome. There's a couple of recommendations I have for identity theft. The FTC website, if you go to that, Federal Trade Commission is absolutely fabulous. They have a guide for recovery from identity theft. That's a great thing to read before you have to read it. I would definitely, and I can provide that guide. I downloaded the PDF before they went pure online, but it's worth looking at. It's got the letters to the credit bureaus. Everything that I just told my hacking colleagues to do the opposite. Protect your passwords, complex passwords, definitely passwords. Be careful what you tell people. Be careful what you post online. Anything that's online is potentially visible to everybody else online, including this person. And I do not really moonlight as a hacker stealing people's stuff, just full disclosure. I realize we're still recording. Awesome. So my first recommendation is social security number, absolutely. Second one is identitytheft.gov on the Federal Trade Commission. My camera isn't focusing on me for some reason. Might be my background. Change that. Still not better. Awesome. Anyway, I also recommend, there goes. I also recommend, there's different services that can remove your information. Like I showed you the truepeoplesearch.com website. I do recommend removing your information. A lot of the more legitimate sites have links where you can go in and remove my information. Some of them hide them. Some of them make it really tough. They want you to enable cookies and provide more information. MyLife.com to get your name and phone number and email and address off of their site. They want you to provide your social security number, a photo ID, government photo ID, and proof that you live at the address you're living, and they would like a utility bill. Don't do that. Please don't give them more information to remove information that is less sensitive. There are services. There's two that I've worked with. Delete Me. I'm a fan of Delete Me. There's an imposter Delete Me out there. The Delete Me I use is by Abine. The company is Abine, the parent company. Delete Me is with the coupon code, which I think is DIY privacy. I think it's DIY privacy for FY21 or for 2021. It'll drop it to about 99 bucks, 99 bucks a year. And they'll go out, they guarantee 30 websites. They'll get you off of quite a bit more, usually 40 or 45 websites, because some websites share the same database. White Pages shares a database with different websites that cater to different markets. One of the biggest data aggregators is Ancestry. People put so much information on it. It's ridiculous. They've got their mother's maiden name. They've got where she lived. They got where they're living. And then people go out and contact people through Ancestry because it seems like it's a safe forum. You know, hey, I'm your long lost relative. It's an awesome place to find victims. So be careful of anything online. So social security number, I would recommend a service. I like Delete Me to remove your information from some of the data aggregator sites. There's about 150 of them, and Delete Me, I'll do 35, 45. It's worth it for 100 bucks a year. in this environment, especially if you have good credit, absolutely worth it. So that's delete me. Social media, be super, super careful on social media. If you have Facebook, if you have Twitter, if you have anything where you are potentially interacting with the rest of the world, go into the privacy settings and set them for super, super private. I find a lot of people have Facebook because they want to talk to relatives who may not be as technical. It's important to make sure that that relative is also protected, whether it's an older parent or a younger grandchild. And, a lot of times they're more technical than we are, but they may not be as aware. It's surprising, but the millennials tend to get hacked more than the baby boomers because they grew up in the web and they consider it a safe environment, and it's not. My other recommendation, passwords. Passwords are so easy. It is so easy to get a password these days, especially if they're associated with your email address. I would look into a password keeper. Password keepers can have an offline. I'll show you this. This is mine off of my personal computer. I've got it's an encrypted USB. It's Kingston does encrypted USBs. So my passwords are on a password keeper, encrypted offline. So I log into my secure USB drive and hit my password keeper. But if somebody gets into my machine, they're not getting my passwords. And I don't have them in the cloud because I'm not synchronizing across mobile devices. If you are synchronizing across mobile devices, Bitwarden is probably your best. It's okay to store passwords in the cloud as long as they're encrypted and as long as you have the only key to that. In some places, cloud storage, another thing to worry about if you're using the cloud, there's something called key escrow, which is if you're going to store data in this country, you have to give a copy of the key to the third party. Don't do that. That third party can get hacked. They can get hit with a subpoena. And if it's offshore, if it's not subject to US privacy laws, it's whatever that government's laws are, and they've got your data. So you want to have the only copy of the encryption key for anything that you're storing online. It's okay to store stuff online. Just make sure that you're the only person that can get into it. I think it was LastPass got hacked in 2016 and they got all of the passwords, but they were encrypted and the customers had the only copy of the encryption key. They couldn't use they couldn't do anything with them. The criminals could not use. So, and LastPass was completely transparent. They brought in a third-party auditor. They shared their findings. They showed how they fixed they fixed their system. So that was a responsible reaction. That was a responsible, really responsible, especially in a business like this. What do I think about LifeLog? Wait, let me go back up. I'm going to try to read the chat without throwing myself out of the meeting. So you guys can hear me. Let's see. Yes, you guys are all saying you can hear me. That's awesome. If you have any technical issues during the presentation, that's awesome. How do you even start? Okay. I would look at Delete Me, FTC. The thing with Delete Me, there's another company out there. They're called, there are some judges in Texas that are using it. It's another, I'm trying to think what they are. They claim they can do 100 websites, but their customer service is horrible. It's like two people in a garage. I looked at them back when I was trying to find a solution for some of the Ninth Circuit stakeholders. I went with Delete Me because their customer service is excellent. The other service, I signed up for it just because I figure if judges are doing it, I want to know what's going on so I can answer a question. But of course, I signed up for it using an alias for my email address, and they aren't returning my calls. They aren't recognizing me. So their customer service is horrible. Nobody ever answers. So Delete Me would be my choice. Protect your info. Don't put it online. Anything you cannot put online, don't put it online. It was entertaining. Thank you. Interesting. Thank you. You guys are in shock. Wasn't going for that, but thank you. And awesome. And yeah, you are more than welcome. You get Maine, love Maine. If you guys want me to come up there, love Maine. I always wanted to write my novel in a nor'easter in a cabin on Maine. So that's one of my personal dreams. Feel free to invite me. That'd be great. Let's see. And LifeLock. I'm a fan of LifeLock. I'm a fan of anything. Nothing, well, let me back up. I'm a fan of any steps that you can take, reasonable steps to protect yourself. Like I showed you, if you have a credit freeze, it can be unfrozen by somebody who's got your social, which isn't that hard to get. I owned a home when I was in Colorado. The deed has my social on it. So if you really want to find me, you can find me. And my information has been stolen. I mean, OPM got hacked a couple times. The Army got hacked a couple times. They've got my DNA. They've got my background for 25 years. I'm a fan. I don't have LifeLock. I did sign up for the OPM identity theft protection. I recommend that. If you were federal employees in 2014, you're eligible for that. That's a similar service to LifeLock. LifeLock's kind of a Cadillac. The OPM identity theft protection service is maybe a VW without air conditioning. But if somebody's using your information to start accounts or forward your mail, the OPM identity theft protection will let you know. I do have a paper on how to sign up for that. And apps like MSecure, I'm a fan of encrypting things. I'm a fan of encryption is going to take you out of the easy targets. If somebody really, I mean, you've got an ex who has an axe to grind, literally, it takes another layer to hide yourself, but you can do it. But just to get away from the garden variety identity thieves, yeah, encrypting. I'm not familiar with Identity Guard. I can look at it. Identity Guard. Something you guys might want to consider, especially being clerks, you might consider a secure messaging app. There's a lot of information that goes out that you text it and you figure, well, who's gonna find? Well, yeah, the Verizon is picking it off. You bet they are. That's not encrypted. That's not secure. That is in the air. That is plain text. Signal is an app. It's a free app. The challenge with Signal is you can only text back and forth with people that have Signal. But if you give Signal access to your contact list, again, a risk. If Signal gets hacked, they've got your contacts, but okay, it's names and addresses. I mean, hopefully you're not putting friends' social security numbers into your phone. If you are, then you need to take my Identity Theft 102 presentation and learn how to hack their lives. I would use the Signal messaging app if you're talking about anything remotely sensitive, because it's going to encrypt it from your phone to that other phone. The challenge is that other person has to have the Signal app. But it always surprises me how much information clerks in particular, because you do the budgets and you do cases and you deal with the security and personal actions. I would definitely look at Signal apps, the Signal app. I don't know about Identity Guard. I can find out. And I've got a book. I put together a handout for another class that I give on protecting your online information. I'm happy to share that with you. It's got the OPM information in it, and it's how to protect yourself. It's the counterpart to this. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Anyone has any questions and you want to unmute and ask it, that's fine too.
Right.
All right, Amy,
Awesome.
thank you so much for this great information. Definitely, I kind of agree with the scary, but rather be informed than not. Thank you to the NCBC Education Committee for organizing these virtual training sessions for us. For those attending the second training session today, we will have a break and get started at the designated time. You may stay connected if you want, or disconnect and reconnect. Just make sure if you stay connected that you're muted and your video is off. If this is your last training session for today, thank you for attending, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you all.